A 17-year-old boy, a football MVP, a straight-A student, an identical twin, walked into a track meet on a rainy April morning in Frisco, Texas. He never walked out. And the young man who killed him? He told police, on camera, "I'm not alleged. I did it. He put his hands on me. I told him not to." That is what we are dealing with today. Before we go a single step further, I need you to know who Austin Metcalf was, because this story has been covered everywhere, and in most of those places, Austin is just a name attached to a crime. Not here. Austin Metcalf was a junior at Memorial High School in Frisco, Texas. He carried a 4.0 GPA. He was voted MVP of his football team. He had already started getting attention from college scouts. He had his entire life mapped out in front of him. And he had an identical twin brother named Hunter. Hunter and Austin Metcalf did everything together. Same sports, same team, same dreams. When Hunter described their bond after his brother's death, he said, "And I want you to sit with these words," he said, "we were one person." That is who we lost on April 2nd, 2025. Now let me tell you what happened. By the time this video is over, we are going to have answered 3 questions that this trial has already started tearing apart in that Collin County courthouse. Question 1, was Karmelo Anthony truly acting in self-defense, or did multiple witnesses just testify under oath that he was the aggressor from the very first moment? Question 2, what does the body camera footage actually show, and why did prosecutors use it to contrast Anthony's composure at his arrest against the chaos and grief playing out in that stadium? And question 3, with a jury seated that contains 0 black members in a case that has already exploded along racial lines nationally, what does that mean for the outcome of this trial? Stay with me, because every single one of those answers matters. Let me set the scene so you understand exactly what we are walking into. It was a Tuesday morning. It was raining off and on throughout the day. Multiple high schools in the Frisco Independent School District had gathered at Kuykendall Stadium for the UIL District 11 5A Championship track meet. Each school had a designated team tent in the bleacher area, a home base for athletes between their events. Memorial High School had their tent set up. Austin was there with his team, with his twin brother Hunter, with his teammates. Karmelo Anthony was a student at Centennial High School, a crosstown rival located about 5 miles away. He and Austin Metcalf did not know each other, had never met. Hunter would later confirm this when he said, "I never met this kid in my life." At some point that morning, around 10 a.m., Karmelo Anthony walked over and sat down inside the Memorial High School tent. He was wearing Centennial gear, and that is where this story begins. Now I need you to understand something. In track and field culture, the team tent is sacred. One witness described it on the stand as a home base for us. You don't walk into another team's tent uninvited. Everyone there knew that. Karmelo Anthony knew that, but he sat down anyway. And when people started noticing, they started asking him, politely at first, to leave. One witness testified, "I remember people confronting Karmelo and saying, 'You shouldn't be here. You probably should leave our tent.' He refused. More people told him to leave. Football players came over. Other students joined in. Witnesses estimated that Karmelo Anthony was asked to leave that tent as many as 15 times. 15 times. He did not move. Now, the defense has tried to argue that Anthony may have known someone in the tent, that he wasn't just there to be defiant. And one witness did acknowledge it was possible he knew someone there. But here is what every single witness agreed on. When people asked him to go, he chose to stay. And when Austin Metcalf stepped forward to personally tell him to leave, that is when the dynamic shifted. Austin Metcalf stepped up. He was bigger than Anthony, by witnesses' estimates, about 50 pounds heavier. He was the football team's MVP. He was not there to be intimidated, and he told Anthony directly, "You need to leave." Karmelo Anthony's response? He reached his hands into his backpack, and he said, "Touch me and find out." Let me walk you through the actual stabbing, the way multiple witnesses described it, under oath in that Collin County courtroom. Witnesses say the confrontation lasted roughly 2 minutes. That is important context. This was not a prolonged brawl. This was a 2-minute exchange that ended with a 17-year-old boy dead. Prosecutors asked each student witness the same questions, and the answers were consistent across the board. Did anyone try to gang up on Anthony? No, sir. Was Austin Metcalf trying to pick a fight? No, sir. Was Karmelo Anthony the aggressor? Yes, sir. Was this self-defense? No, sir. Here is what the key witness described. Austin leaned in to push Anthony, a single push, from a standing position, directed at someone who was seated. He was trying to move him. Another witness said it was not aggressive, like it would hurt him. He was trying to move him, and in that moment, as Austin leaned in, Karmelo Anthony stabbed him once in the chest. The witnesses say they didn't even see the knife. They saw emotion, and then they saw Austin Metcalf fall back down the bleachers. What happened next? I want you to hear this clearly. Austin stood back up. He pulled up his shirt. He looked down at his own chest, covered in blood, and he said, "I think I got stabbed." And then he said, "Oh my God." His twin brother Hunter was right there. He rushed to him. He held him. He pressed on the wound. He screamed for help. Body camera footage captured him yelling at officers, "My brother, my best friend, hurry up. He's very messed up." The paramedics came. A CPR machine could be heard in the footage repeating, "Press, press, press." The coaches were on their knees. One coach pressed his own jacket against the wound so hard it was soaked through with blood. Prosecutors later displayed that blood-stained jacket as physical evidence. Frisco Fire Department paramedic Neil Adams testified on the stand about everything they tried to do to save Austin. He said simply, "We kept doing everything we could. It didn't help." Austin Metcalf died in his twin brother's arms at a high school track meet. After the stabbing, Karmelo Anthony ran. He dropped the knife. It was later recovered 3 to 4 rows up from where the stabbing occurred, partially closed, and he fled the stadium. A short time later, he was located by a school resource officer with the Frisco Police Department named Officer Eduardo Cortez. The body camera footage from that arrest was played for the jury, and it became one of the most significant moments of this trial. In the footage, you can see Anthony with his hands raised. He is barely audible at first. And then Officer Cortez testified to what Anthony said to him. He did not ask, "What's happening?" He did not say, "I don't know what's going on." He said, "I'm not alleged. I did it. He put his hands on me. I told him not to. He put his hands on me." That is an admission. Now, the defense has worked hard to frame what Anthony's demeanor was like in that moment. Was he emotional? Was he calm? Officer Cortez testified that he had described Anthony as emotional in his report, but clarified that description applied specifically to the moment. Anthony spoke about the warning he gave. As officers escorted him to the patrol car, Anthony asked them, "Am I going to be okay?" The officer told him he didn't know. Prosecutors used this arrest footage strategically, playing it directly after showing the jury the chaos at the stadium. The contrast was intentional. While Austin's twin brother was wailing, while paramedics were working, while coaches were on their knees pressing a jacket into a child's chest wound, Karmelo Anthony was calm enough to speak in complete sentences to explain why he did what he did. That contrast is what the prosecution wants the jury to carry into deliberations. Now let me tell you about the weapon, because this detail is going to matter when we talk about what the defense is arguing. The knife recovered at the scene was a folding pocket knife with a black blade. The blade measured approximately 3.5 inches. It was not fully open when it was found. Prosecutors produced the actual knife in court, held it up for the jury while wearing black latex gloves. They also showed a replica. Here is where it gets complicated. Under Texas law, possession of a knife with a blade under 5.5 inches is not a crime. Defense attorney Mike Howard made sure the jury heard that clearly. He also established that if a student were found with this knife at school, the punishment would only be a school disciplinary matter, not a criminal charge. The prosecution's counter-argument is simple and it is devastating. The issue is not whether Karmelo Anthony was allowed to carry the knife. The issue is that he brought it to a track meet, held it ready in a backpack, taunted a teenager by saying, "Touch me and find out," and then used it the moment that teenager put a hand on him. One officer even testified that this type of knife is typically carried as a tool, not a weapon. So the question for the jury is not whether he had the right to own that knife. The question is whether he had the right to use it against an unarmed teenager, after he chose not to leave a tent 15 times, after he issued a direct taunt, and after he had his hand on that knife long before Austin Metcalf ever made a move. I am not going to skip this part, because this community deserves the full picture. This case has exploded nationally, and a significant part of that has to do with race. Karmelo Anthony is black, Austin Metcalf was white. And from the moment this story broke, social media turned it into a culture war, with some people fundraising for Anthony's legal defense, and others using the case to push narratives about race and crime that have nothing to do with what actually happened under that tent. Now we are in a courtroom, and the jury that was seated for this trial contains 0 black members. That fact has drawn criticism from advocacy groups and legal observers. The racial composition of a jury in a case involving a black defendant has a documented history in this country of affecting outcomes. That is not an opinion, that is data. And the people paying attention to this trial, particularly in black communities, are watching that jury very closely. NBC News reported that civil rights organization Next Generation Action Network has been involved in supporting Anthony's case. It was this same organization that negotiated the agreement allowing Anthony to graduate from high school while awaiting trial. He finished with a 3.7 GPA. Meanwhile, Austin Metcalf's twin brother Hunter accepted Austin's posthumous diploma at graduation this spring, a ceremony where Austin should have been standing beside him. There is grief on multiple sides of this case, and there are legitimate questions being asked about whether this trial will be decided on evidence or on something else entirely. Here is where we are right now. Karmelo Anthony is 19 years old. He is charged with first-degree murder. His attorneys are arguing self-defense. If convicted, he faces anywhere from 5 years to life in prison. The trial began June 1st, 2026, and is expected to last approximately 2 weeks. We are in the middle of it right now. Witnesses have already testified, consistently, under oath, that Anthony provoked this confrontation, refused to leave 15 times, and stabbed an unarmed teenager the moment that teenager touched him. The defense will have their turn, and the jury will decide. But here's what I want to leave you with. Austin Metcalf's father, Jeff, has said publicly, "I already forgive this person. Already. God takes care of things. I pray that none of this happens to another family." That kind of grace, in the middle of that kind of grief, is something. Austin Metcalf had a 4.0 GPA. He was a football MVP with college scouts watching. He had a twin brother who described him as one half of a single soul. He walked into a track meet on a rainy Tuesday morning in April, told a stranger to move out of his team's tent, and never went home. He deserves for every single detail of what happened that day to be told accurately, completely, and without agenda. That is what we are here to do. What do you think? Based on the witness testimony you have heard so far, do you think the jury will find Karmelo Anthony guilty? Or do you think the self-defense argument is going to hold up? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And the moment there is a new development in this case, a verdict, a key piece of testimony, anything, you will be the first to know. Make sure you are subscribed with the bell turned on, because this story is far from over.